Aaron had been awake for so long that the lights in the engineering bay had begun to blur together, turning the world into a soft smear of blue and white. That was the only explanation he could offer, later, for why his mouth betrayed him. Exhaustion, stress, dehydration, take your pick. Anything was better than admitting he had simply spoken before thinking, a human tradition that older civilizations probably listed under observable primitive behaviors. He was tightening the last coolant latch on the fusion stabilizer when the bay doors opened with a metallic hiss. The air shifted, carrying with it the faint mineral warmth that always followed the Drelani delegation. Their scales radiated heat like living furnaces, a side effect of the volcanic world they came from. Aaron didn't need to look to know who had entered. Every engineer on Outpost Asterian 6 had already memorized her footsteps. Kilira. Drelani Security Chief. 8 feet of disciplined muscle, shimmering scales along her spine, long elf-like ears tuned to every vibration, and a tail that moved with unsettling precision, like a serpent thinking its own thoughts. She approached the stabilizer with the controlled power of someone trained to break starship hulls with her bare hands. Aaron forced himself to look busy, because every time Kilira looked at him, something in his brain temporarily disconnected. "We completed the patrol," she said, her voice smooth like heated stone. "Cool," he replied, because his brain was now actively sabotaging him. "I mean, great. That's great." She studied the stabilizer panel, her tail gently swaying behind her in slow arcs. Aaron tried not to watch it. He failed. The motion was oddly hypnotic, the scales catching the light like liquid bronze. Some Drelani had thicker tails built for combat, Kilira's was thinner, more agile, almost elegant. If 8-foot alien warriors could be called elegant. He tightened one more bolt and stood, wiping coolant dust from his hands. "Your tail looks, surprisingly fluffy for a warrior." Silence. Not the peaceful, thoughtful kind. A silence so sharp it felt like the atmosphere had been sucked out of the bay. Kilira did not move. Her pupils narrowed to slits. Her tail froze mid-sway like a captured hologram. Aaron felt the exact moment his soul attempted to leave his body. He tried to rewind the universe with his voice alone. "I didn't mean fluffy in a bad way. More like, soft." "No, not soft. Just, expressive." "No, not expressive either." Kilira's ears twitched, a flick so slight he would have missed it if she hadn't been staring at him like she was recalculating whether humans were edible. "Human," she finally said, "did you just comment on my tail?" "I might have." His voice climbed several notes higher than usual. "I mean, technically, yes, but scientifically." "Scientifically?" Her tone dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Do humans normally evaluate combat appendages for fluffiness?" "Not usually," Aaron said. "Mostly we evaluate cats. And sometimes dogs." Her tail lowered slowly, the tip curling like an offended cobra. The air grew hotter, which Aaron assumed meant she was either furious or preparing to molt. He wasn't sure which was worse. He attempted a smile. It felt like his face had forgotten how. "Let's just pretend that never happened," he said weakly. But Kilira's expression told him that Drelani memory was flawless. She stepped closer, the heat of her body brushing against his arm. Aaron swallowed a sound that was absolutely not a squeak. "In my culture," she said, "a tail compliment is significant." "How significant?" he asked, terrified. She lowered her face until her golden eyes were inches from his. "Intimate." Aaron's brain immediately turned off. It simply quit its job. Kilira pulled back, tail flicking sharply, and walked out with a stiffness that suggested she was either offended or overwhelmed. Aaron wasn't sure which one to pray for. The engineering bay doors sealed behind her with an accusing hiss. He stayed frozen for a full minute before collapsing onto a crate of wiring coils. He ran both hands over his face. Great, he muttered into his palms. I just accidentally proposed marriage to a dragon woman. A voice crackled from above. The Bay's monitoring AI had apparently been listening. Correction, your comment has been added to the intercultural behavioral log under potential pre-courtship interactions. Would you like this filed under intentional or accidental? Accidental. Aaron yelped. So accidental. Logged, the AI replied, far too cheerfully. Aaron dropped his head back and stared at the ceiling, contemplating the possibility of faking his own death. Maybe falling into a coolant tank. Maybe drifting off into space, accidentally, during a repair shift. Anything to avoid facing Kilira again. But fate, or poor scheduling, had no mercy. 2 hours later, Aaron found himself assigned to a routine systems check in the docking corridor. Kilira was already there, reviewing a holomap of the outpost's lower decks. She didn't turn when he approached, but her tail flicked upward in a sharp movement that made his stomach twist. He couldn't tell if it was a warning or a greeting. Drelani tails were like emotional Morse code, but he had absolutely no idea how to read it. Engineer Aaron, she said, her voice painfully neutral. Security Chief Kilira, he replied with what he hoped was dignity and not the trembling of a man on the edge of spontaneous combustion. We will complete the inspection efficiently, she said. Minimal communication required. Right, Aaron said. Minimal. Perfect. I'm great at being silent. Kilira gave him a look that said she knew this was a lie. They walked together, the corridor illuminated by the soft pulse of emergency strip lights. Kilira's steps were silent, Aaron's echoed embarrassingly loudly. Every time her tail swayed near him, he flinched like it was a live wire. They reached the stabilizer relay chamber. Kilira scanned the doorway, then hesitated, not physically, but emotionally. Even Aaron could see the conflict in her posture, the faint rise of warmth on her scales. She exhaled sharply. Human. Your comment earlier. Aaron trapped air in his lungs and held it. Was unexpected. He nodded rapidly. Yes. Very. Extremely. Unexpected is my middle name. It is not. She frowned. Your personnel file lists your middle name as Elliot. Aaron cursed softly. Right. Sorry. Humor. Bad timing. Kilira's tail lowered a fraction. Your words startled me, she admitted, voice softer. Drelani do not receive such compliments lightly. It caused an instinctive reaction. So, you're not going to kill me? Her eyes widened a fraction. Kill you? Why would I kill someone who offered me? She stopped, ears twitching again. Never mind. They stood in awkward silence. Aaron inhaled, steady this time. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think your tail is impressive. Not fluffy. Impressive. Like, an extension of your strength. Kilira stared at him long enough that he wondered if time dilation had kicked in. Then. Barely visible, a smile touched her lips. A real one. Her tail curled once around her ankle, a gesture he didn't understand but felt strangely relieved by. Come, she said. Let us work. And as they moved through the humming machinery, something in the tension between them shifted, lighter now, threaded with something he didn't know how to name yet. But Kilira's tail swayed differently this time. Not defensive. Not startled. Curious. Aaron arrived at the central command deck the next morning with the posture of a man quietly hoping to be abducted by a passing wormhole. Anything, gravity collapse, spontaneous solar flare, accidental ejection into deep space, would have been preferable to dealing with the aftermath of yesterday's tail incident. Unfortunately, the universe seemed committed to keeping him alive and painfully conscious. He had barely stepped inside when Lieutenant Mara intercepted him with a grin sharp enough to cut hull plating. Well, she said, spinning a data tablet between her fingers. If it isn't Mr. Pre-courtship interaction. Aaron groaned. Please don't call me that. It's what the AI logged, she replied smugly. And the log is public to senior staff. So congratulations, you're officially the first engineer to flirt with a Draylani warrior by mistake. I wasn't flirting. Oh, sure. You only complimented her tail, the most private and emotionally symbolic part of her anatomy. Completely innocent. Aaron slapped a hand over his face. I'm never speaking again. Mara patted his shoulder. Don't worry. I'm sure Kilira will kill you quickly if she decides you crossed a cultural line. Comforting, he muttered. Before Mara could add more torment, the bay doors slid open and Kilira entered with her usual commanding presence. Even in full combat armor she moved with a fluid grace that made Aaron feel like a clumsy stack of malfunctioning servos. Her golden eyes swept the room, assessing everything with warrior efficiency, until they landed on him. Her tail froze for half a second. Just half. But Aaron noticed. Everyone noticed. Draylani tails didn't freeze unless something emotional was involved, and every human officer on the deck stared at Aaron with barely contained curiosity. Kilira approached him. Not slowly, but deliberately, as if bracing for impact. Engineer Aaron, she said, voice calm but slightly strained. We are assigned to a joint inspection of the lower conduits. Oh, Aaron said. Good. Great. Perfect. Wonderful. Mara leaned in and stage whispered, smooth. Kilira's left ear twitched, meaning she heard it. Aaron considered simply collapsing on the floor so the humiliation could finish him faster. Kilira turned, signaling for him to follow. Her tail flicked once. High, controlled, and still unreadable to him. He trailed her through the corridor, keeping exactly 2 meters of distance to avoid any accidental proximity-related misunderstandings. The lower conduits were narrow tunnels snaking under the station's power grid. They hummed with the pulse of fusion reactors, glowed with neon diagnostic readouts, and creaked occasionally in ways that reminded Aaron of old science fiction horror films he wished he hadn't watched. Kilira scanned the entrances with a portable sensor. Our task, she said, is simple. Verify coolant distribution, examine power regulators, and detect any structural weaknesses caused by last night's microquake. Simple, Aaron echoed. Completely simple. Nothing dangerous. Except maybe the occasional pressure leak. Or the coolant bursts. Or the unstable wiring. Kilira raised an eyebrow. Is it human custom to list every possible disaster before beginning a task? It's how we cope, Aaron said. I see. Fascinating. They descended into the conduits, illuminated only by their wrist lights and the soft glow of crystalline power lines. Their footsteps echoed strangely, Kilira's nearly silent, Aaron's considerably not. So, Aaron ventured. About yesterday. Kilira stiffened almost imperceptibly. It is not necessary to discuss it. No, it is, Aaron said, surprising even himself. Because I really didn't want to make you uncomfortable. Or accidentally. Romantically obligated, or whatever that compliment means in your culture. Kilira halted. It is not romantic obligation, she said slowly. It is, acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of what? She hesitated. Draylani didn't hesitate. They moved, acted, decided. But she did. That you noticed me, she finally said, voice low. Truly noticed. Tail expressions are not discussed lightly among my people. When you spoke of it, I reacted without thought. Instinct took over. Was that instinct to strangle me? A pause. Partially. Aaron sighed. Fair. They resumed walking. Kilira seemed more relaxed, or as relaxed as a towering dragon-descended warrior could ever appear in a cramped metal tunnel. A flicker of static crossed the diagnostic panel ahead. Aaron approached it and frowned. "Ha! That's odd." "Define odd," Kilira said. "This relay is drawing more power than it should. Something's misaligned." Kilira crouched beside him, her tail stabilizing her like a tripod. "Possible interference? Maybe. Or maybe the station's AI finally snapped after logging one too many embarrassing cultural interactions." Kilira blinked. "Was that humor?" "Yes. And I'm proud it wasn't awful." "It was borderline awful," she said. "But still humor." "Correct." Aaron forced a smile. "Progress." As he opened the relay panel, a gust of cold vapor burst out with a violent hiss. Aaron yelped and jumped backward, tripping over a cable and falling flat on his back. Kilira's tail whipped out like a striking whip, catching his arm and preventing his skull from cracking against the metal floor. The move was so smooth it felt choreographed. She held him suspended awkwardly halfway up, dangling from her tail like a confused marionette. Aaron stared at her. Do Drelani always save people with their tails?" "Only when necessary." Her grip tightened slightly. "You fall often." "I have gravity problems." "Humans all have gravity problems." "I feel singled out." Kilira lowered him gently, then retracted her tail in a motion that looked suspiciously embarrassed. Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. "Thanks. Again." "You are fragile," she said. "I am assigned to protect this outpost. It includes you." Aaron tried not to read into that. He failed. They investigated the malfunction together. Kilira's claws delicately adjusted crystalline wires while Aaron recalibrated the alignment software. Their movements slowly fell into rhythm, her strength and precision paired with his technical fluency. The more they worked, the easier it became to talk. "So," Aaron said casually, "should I avoid all tail-related comments from now on?" "That would be wise." "And ear comments? Scale comments? Claw comments?" Kilira gave him a look that radiated exasperated amusement. "Avoid anatomical comments." "Got it. Stick to work topics." "That would be ideal." A long pause. "Your armor looks great today," Aaron said. "That is not an anatomical comment. So I'm safe. For now." Another pause. "But thank you." Aaron nearly dropped a tool at the quiet sincerity in her voice. They finished the inspection and restored the relay to normal function. Kilira checked the last diagnostic reading and nodded. "Completed. Efficiently. Minimal disasters," Aaron said. "That's rare for me." "That is unfortunate," Kilira replied. "But improving." As they walked back through the conduits, the hum of the station felt less oppressive. Something between them had shifted again, not erased, not resolved, but softened. Like a tension coil unwinding just enough for something new to fill the space. Halfway up the ladder to the main deck, Kilira paused. "Aaron." He looked up at her, nearly missing a rung. "Yeah." She turned slightly, long ears angled toward him. "Your words yesterday startled me because they were unexpected. But not unwelcome." Aaron blinked. "Really?" Kilira's tail flicked in a swift, flustered arc. "Do not make me repeat it." He smiled. "A real one." "I won't." They reached the upper platform and stepped into the hallway. Mara glanced up from her console, eyebrows raised. "You two look different," she said suspiciously. Aaron opened his mouth to deny it, but Kilira spoke first. "We worked efficiently," she said. "Minimal communication." "Right," Mara said, smirking. "Minimal." Aaron tried, and failed, not to grin. Kilira walked away with the dignity of an interstellar warrior. Her tail, however, swayed once in a subtle upward arc. And Aaron felt a warmth spread through his chest at the sight, realizing, far too late, that humor had carried them into something deeper, and far more complicated. Aaron was halfway through his first cup of synth coffee when the station alarms erupted in a shrill, vibrating wail that rattled every panel in the engineering deck. The mug jumped out of his hand and splattered across the floor in a caffeinated explosion. Aaron stared down at the mess, sighed, and muttered, "Great. Catastrophe before caffeine. This is how I die." The intercom crackled. "All personnel report to primary diagnostics. Possible sabotage detected." "Sabotage?" Aaron whispered. No, this station cannot handle sabotage. I can barely handle breakfast." He sprinted toward the corridor, then immediately slipped on his own spilled coffee and crashed into the wall. The impact reverberated down the metal paneling like a gong. He lay there face down for a full 3 seconds before pushing himself up with a groan. When he arrived at diagnostics, he found Kilira already there, towering over a holographic model of the station's lower decks. Her armor glowed with faint heat signatures, and her long ears pointed sharply forward as she studied the pulsing red symbols marking potential breach points. Her tail was lifted high, alert, tense, dangerous. Aaron swallowed. "So. Good morning." Without looking up, Kilira replied, "The station detects unauthorized routing. Power lines in subsector Theta are being redirected." "Redirected how?" he asked, leaning in to look. "Poorly," she said. "If someone intended sabotage, they are incompetent. Or maybe it's me sleepwalking and doing engineering crimes." Kilira glanced at him. "Possible. I was joking." She turned back to the model. "I was not." Aaron opened his mouth, closed it, then decided that maybe the universe didn't want him to win today. She pointed to the largest red node. "We must investigate this relay junction. It is the source of the anomaly." Aaron nodded. "Right. Standard check. Easy. Nothing explodes unless I touch it." "That is not reassuring." "It shouldn't be." Kilira led the way, moving through the corridor with the deliberate rhythm of someone preparing for combat. Aaron followed close behind, trying to look brave but probably resembling a terrified vacuum bot on its first day. The deeper they went, the more the station changed. The lights dimmed into an orange glow. The air grew warmer, humming with latent fusion energy. Kilira paused at each junction, her tail sweeping behind her like a sensor array, analyzing vibrations Aaron couldn't hear. "You sense something?" he asked. "I sense wrongness," she murmured. Aaron blinked. "Could you be more specific? Wrongness in the, we should go back way, or wrongness in the, I should have drafted my will way?" Kilira tilted her head. "Somewhere in between. So, mild will drafting." "Correct." They reached the relay junction. It was dim, with only a few flickering lights illuminating the room. Aaron moved to the primary panel, inspecting the wiring. Something was definitely off, lines rerouted, crystals misaligned, heat buffers manually disabled. "Okay," Aaron said, "this definitely wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with the system." Kilira scanned the air with her wrist device. "No life signatures detected." "Great," Aaron said. "So the saboteur might still be on the station." "Perfect. No pressure." Kilira stepped toward a secondary control column, brushing against a stray cable. For a split second the machinery screeched, an electric shriek that made Aaron's heart expand to 3 times its size. Instinct took over. He grabbed Kilira's arm and yanked her back just as a burst of coolant vapor exploded from the wall. The blast created a shimmering cloud of freezing microcrystals that would have scorched skin on contact. Kilira blinked at Aaron, clearly surprised. "You reacted quickly." Aaron, still panting, replied, "Fear is an underrated motivator." Kilira's tail lifted slightly, in what Aaron was beginning to recognize as amusement. He crouched by the ruptured pipe. "This wasn't sabotage," he whispered. "It was a malfunction." Kilira frowned. "Explain." "This junction hasn't been cleaned in months. Look, dust buildup, cracked crystals, overheating nodes." He tapped a glowing line, which sizzled ominously. Whoever flagged sabotage must have misinterpreted the readings. "So the station alarmed us, because of poor maintenance." "Hey, poor maintenance keeps me employed." Kilira stared at him. Aaron coughed. "I'm kidding. Mostly." Together they worked on restoring the system. Kilira held components in place with her claws while Aaron recalibrated the power lines. Despite the cramped space, they moved smoothly, one anticipating the other's actions without needing to ask. At some point, Kilira's tail accidentally brushed against Aaron's knee. He froze like he'd been hit by a stun beam. Kilira also froze. Her tail quickly retreated behind her like a startled cat tucking itself away. Aaron tried to breathe normally. He failed. Again. She cleared her throat. Contact was accidental. "Oh, yes. Totally. Tail stuff. Happens all the time. I mean, not to me. I don't have a tail. So statistically, it never happens to me. But for tail-having individuals, accidental tail collision is probably very." Aaron. "Yes. Stop talking." "Stopping now." She resumed her work, though the tip of her tail flicked in a guilty rhythm that Aaron found oddly endearing. Once the repairs were complete, the systems came back online in a smooth emerald glow. Aaron checked the readings. Everything stable. No saboteur. Just messy tech. Kilira nodded. "Good. Then we should inform command." Aaron stood, stretching his back until it popped. "Before we go, can I ask something?" Kilira turned, ears angling toward him. "Ask." "Yesterday you said my comment about your tail wasn't unwelcome." Kilira's posture stiffened slightly, but she didn't look away. "Correct. So does that mean you're okay with everything?" She considered this. Her tail curled once behind her, slow, deliberate. A full rotation. Aaron had no idea what it meant, but it somehow tightened every nerve in his body. "It means," Kilira said carefully, "that your words surprised me because they felt genuine. Rarely does anyone speak to a Drelani warrior with such sincerity." "Well, sincerity is kind of my accidental specialty." Kilira huffed a soft, amused breath. "Yes. I am aware." They started back up the corridor, side by side. Their footsteps echoed, though hers remained nearly soundless. Aaron watched her tail swaying behind her, not interpreting, just noticing. Halfway to the main deck, Kilira slowed. "Aaron." "Yes." "You protected me from the coolant burst." "Instinct," he said. "Reflex. Also panic." It was still courageous. Aaron's cheeks warmed. "Thank you." Kilira paused again, ears lifting. Then, to Aaron's complete shock, she spoke in a much quieter tone. "Among my people, we honor those who protect us, even accidentally." "Oh," Aaron said. "Cool. Some kind of ceremonial handshake thing?" "No." "What then?" Her golden eyes narrowed not in displeasure, but in something else, something he could not name. "It is complicated." "Well," Aaron said, trying to smile, "complicated is pretty much my specialty." Kilira's tail curled upward. And this time, she didn't hide it. Aaron had never attended a diplomatic feast before, mostly because engineers were rarely invited to anything that involved real food, high-ranking officials, or the possibility of embarrassing an entire species. Yet there he was. Standing stiffly in the grand hall of Outpost Esterion 6, surrounded by shimmering banners, floating illumination orbs, and dozens of Draylani warriors whose scales glittered like molten gemstones. He tugged at the collar of his dress uniform. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. Lieutenant Mara elbowed him. "You fixed the Theta relay, saved Kilira from a coolant blast, and avoided setting anything on fire for a whole week. That makes you a hero." "I tripped over a cable," Aaron replied. "Not a hero." "Same thing." Before Aaron could argue further, the room shifted. The temperature rose, the lights dimmed, and the Draylani delegation entered in a coordinated formation. They looked like a living wave of scaled armor and glowing eyes. At the front walked Kilira, tall and resolute, her posture impossibly controlled. Her tail flowed behind her with the grace of a living banner. Aaron immediately forgot how breathing worked. She scanned the hall, acknowledging her warriors with a nod. When her gaze finally found him, her ears twitched, an almost imperceptible movement, but enough to send a small panic spiral through Aaron's entire nervous system. He lifted his hand in a tiny wave that was, in fact, extremely stupid. Kilira did not wave back. But her tail swayed once in a slow curve. Mara whispered, "That means something." Aaron whispered back, "I know it means something. I just don't know if it means something good or something that requires medical evacuation." Kilira approached him with the confident strides of someone who could crush industrial machinery if slightly annoyed. "Engineer Aaron," she said. "Your presence is acknowledged." Aaron blinked. Acknowledged as in welcomed? Or acknowledged as in tolerated for now? Kilira tilted her head. "Both. That makes me feel marginally better." "It should not." The feast began in full. Giant round tables projected floating holographic menus, offering dishes from both human and Draylani cuisine. Aaron made the mistake of tapping a Draylani item, which produced a glowing plate of sizzling stone fruit and spiced lava petals. He stared at it. "Is this edible for humans?" Kilira glanced over. "Only if you do not mind temporary paralysis." Aaron immediately shoved the entire plate to the far end of the table. He turned to Kilira. "So, these feasts. Are there rituals? Gestures I should avoid? Foods that could signal deep betrayal? Drinks that imply mating proposals?" Kilira paused mid-bite. Aaron's stomach dropped. "What?" She set her utensils down. "It is fortunate you asked before consuming anything. Yes, there are gestures to avoid." "Okay," Aaron said, sweating. "List them. Please. Preferably before I accidentally marry somebody." Kilira raised one clawed finger. "Do not touch another Draylani's drinking vessel." "Got it." "Do not comment on the sheen of anyone's scales. It is the equivalent of commenting on a human's intimate features." Aaron slowly pushed his chair further under the table. "Noted. And under no circumstances should you make eye contact while chewing." "Why?" "It is considered extremely forward." Aaron blinked. "Forward-like?" "Yes. Exactly that." He immediately began eating only when looking firmly at the ceiling. Kilira's tail flicked in amusement. As the feast progressed, Aaron realized something unexpected: Kilira was relaxed. Not fully, she still carried herself like a warrior guarding a border, but there was a faint looseness in her posture, a softening in her voice whenever she addressed him. At one point, she leaned closer and whispered, "Observe the Draylani ambassador. He has eaten 62 protein obsidian spheres." Aaron glanced. "Is that safe?" "No. He will regret it later." Aaron snorted into his drink, nearly choking. Kilira's ears lifted in delight. But the night was far from over. The next part of the feast involved a cultural exchange showcase, which sounded harmless until Aaron realized it meant volunteers demonstrating rituals from both species. Mara shoved him forward before he could protest. Aaron represents humans, she said to the entire hall. Kilira's eyes widened. Aaron's soul attempted to flee his body once more. A stage light illuminated him. Hundreds of glowing Draylani eyes watched with predatory curiosity. What do humans do, Kilira asked, for bonding rituals? Aaron panicked. Well. We have jokes. Kilira blinked. Jokes. Yes. Humor. We laugh at things instead of fighting them. A strange custom, she admitted. But proceed. Aaron cleared his throat. Okay. Here goes. Why did the starship take a nap? The hall fell silent. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. Because, Aaron said, it was feeling drained. A single cough echoed through the hall. Then another. Then a deep, rumbling sound began among the Draylani. It took Aaron a moment to realize it was laughter. Actual laughter, low, vibrating, rolling like thunder. Kilira stared at him, stunned, before her tail curled in a soft upward arc. That was unexpectedly effective, she said. Trust me, I'm as surprised as you. The mood lightened. Draylani warriors attempted to mimic human smiling, which resulted in expressions that looked more like they were preparing to bite something. Aaron did not mention this, he wished to live. Eventually the showcase ended, and Kilira guided him toward a quiet corner of the hall. You handled the ritual well, she said. Thank you. I was aiming for, not catastrophic. You exceeded expectations. So, not catastrophic and slightly charming. Kilira's pupils widened. Her tail wrapped briefly around her own leg, a gesture Aaron recognized now. Shyness. Draylani warriors rarely showed it. Before he could comment, Kilira leaned closer. Earlier today, when you asked if I was okay with your past words, I realized something. Aaron swallowed. What's that? She took a slow breath. Your honesty unsettles me. Because I am not accustomed to it. But I do not dislike it. Aaron's heartbeat executed a triple somersault. He spoke softly. I'm glad. A pause stretched between them, long but warm, quiet but charged. Then a Draylani steward approached, bowing. Kilira, it is time for the gesture exchange. Kilira inhaled sharply. Not now. Yes, the steward insisted. Tradition requires it. Aaron blinked. Gesture exchange. Kilira pressed her fingers to her forehead. It is a small ritual. Two individuals exchange a physical gesture symbolizing mutual respect. Oh, Aaron said. Like a handshake. Kilira stared at him with a level of horror that suggested he had just asked if heart surgery was similar to making toast. No, she whispered. Not like a handshake. What is it then? She stepped forward and, very gently, tapped her tail once against his wrist. Aaron froze. Kilira withdrew immediately, ears burning with visible heat. It is a gesture of trust. Oh, he murmured. Then, thank you. The steward nodded. The gesture is complete. Kilira exhaled shakily. This feast is over. Aaron smiled as they walked out together. He didn't understand every cultural nuance. He didn't know where any of this was headed. But Kilira's tail brushed his arm again, softly, intentionally. And this time, neither of them pretended it was an accident. Aaron woke to the sound of the station humming too loudly, the way it always did before something went wrong. He sat up in his bunk, instinctively patting the wall beside him. When the hum didn't fade, he sighed. Great. The universe refuses to give me one quiet morning. The intercom flickered. All personnel report to engineering. Structural disturbance detected. He groaned, threw on his uniform, and sprinted through the corridor. As he rounded the corner, Kilira emerged from the opposite hall, already in partial armor, scales glowing faintly with heat. Their eyes met, and for a strange moment Aaron forgot about the loud humming, the alarms, the universe. Her tail lifted, calm recognition, quiet warmth. "Good morning," Kilira said. "That depends," Aaron replied. "Are we about to explode?" "Uncertain. Let us find out." They hurried to engineering, where chaos awaited. Holograms flickered. Reports piled on screens. Mara was pacing in frantic loops. "Theta conduits again," she said. "Energy spike. No sabotage this time, just the station deciding it hates us." Aaron leaned over the display, scanning the readings. His stomach tightened. "That's a pressure buildup. If it reaches critical, we lose half the lower deck," Mara finished. Kilira stepped forward. "What must be done?" Aaron swallowed hard. "Manual bypass. But someone has to go into the crawl chamber and reroute the plasma channels by hand." Mara looked at him with pity. "So, you." Aaron rubbed his temples. "Why is it always me?" Kilira's tail flicked with irritation. "Because you understand the conduits better than any human on this outpost." Aaron opened the equipment hatch and grabbed insulated gloves and goggles. "Fine. But if I die, I want someone to clear my internet history." Mara saluted. "It will be done." Kilira tilted her head. "What is an internet history?" "Nothing important," Aaron said quickly. Kilira stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I will accompany you." Aaron blinked. "You? In the crawl chamber? You barely fit." "I can adapt," she said simply. He tried to argue, but one look at her golden eyes silenced him. So they went together, descending into the narrow depths of the station. Heat pulsed through the metal floor, and light from the plasma channels turned the walls a shimmering blue. Aaron knelt beside the faulty junction. "Okay. I'll need you to stabilize that regulator while I redirect the flow. Careful, if you put too much pressure, it'll blow." Kilira positioned herself with warrior precision. "I understand." They worked in tight synchronization. Aaron adjusted conduits and cracked jokes about how his life choices led him to crawling through dangerous machinery. Kilira occasionally offered dry commentary that made him snort aloud. "Why do humans joke while under threat?" she asked. "It keeps us from screaming." "I see. Efficient." A sudden tremor rocked the crawl chamber. Aaron slipped, his hands flying toward the plasma valve. Kilira reacted instantly, grabbing his wrist with her tail and pulling him upright before his fingers grazed the heated metal. "Careful," she murmured. "I'm trying. Gravity's just mean." Another tremor shook the floor, this one stronger. Sparks burst across the wall. Alarms screamed. Aaron and Kilira exchanged a single look, the kind that contains entire conversations. Aaron turned the emergency wheel. "Okay, almost there, just need 3 more seconds." Kilira braced her arms on either side of him, shielding him from falling debris. He aimed for humor but his voice cracked. "Not that I'm complaining, but we're in the middle of mortal danger and your body heat is melting my eyebrows." "It is protective," she replied firmly. He twisted the final lock. Plasma flow redirected. Alarms stopped. The glow faded to normal levels. Aaron collapsed backward into Kilira's arms. Her tail steadied him gently. "It's done," he breathed. "We're safe." Kilira didn't release him immediately. Instead, she looked at him the way she had not allowed herself to before, openly, quietly, without the shield of warrior discipline. "You risk much for this outpost," she said softly. Aaron shrugged. I mostly just don't want everyone to die. That is courage, she replied. Even if you disguise it with fear. He gave a shaky laugh. I'm not disguising it. I'm definitely terrified. Kilira's ears flicked with amusement. And yet you acted. They climbed out of the conduit together. Mara was waiting, wide-eyed with relief. You did it. Both of you. Kilira inclined her head. The engineer is resourceful. Aaron's face flushed. We make a decent team. Later that evening, the outpost held an informal gathering to celebrate not exploding. Humans sang badly. Drelani attempted dancing, which involved stomping so hard the floor vibrated. Aaron stood near the observation window, watching the stars ripple against the shield. Kilira approached, her footsteps quiet. You are calmer now, she observed. For once, he replied. No alarms. No crashing. No coolant explosions. Kilira's tail curled slightly. I wish to speak with you. Alone. That sentence alone nearly triggered a new alarm inside Aaron's skull. Okay. She moved beside him, eyes reflecting starlight. Since arriving on this outpost, my thoughts have been sharpened by duty. But after meeting you, they have shifted. Aaron swallowed. Shifted how? You unsettle me, she said. Yet not in ways I wish to avoid. His heart flipped. Twice. She continued. Your honesty. Your fear. Your attempts at humor. These things confuse me. And they make me consider possibilities. Possibilities, he echoed. Kilira gently touched her tail to his wrist. The gesture of trust. But this time she didn't withdraw it. In my culture, she said quietly, this gesture is only extended to one specific individual. Who? Aaron asked. Kilira answered with a steady voice. Someone we choose. Aaron's breath caught. He lifted his hand slowly and rested it against the base of her tail, not gripping, just acknowledging. And in my culture, he said softly, we call this, saying yes. Her pupils widened. A soft heat pulsed beneath her scales. You accept, she whispered. Yeah, he replied. I do. Silence wrapped around them, warm, solid, certain. Later, the outpost returned to its usual routines. Reports were filed. Systems repaired. Future inspections scheduled. Life, ordinary, chaotic, beautifully imperfect, resumed. But Aaron moved differently now. Not with less fear, but with more purpose. He had learned that courage wasn't the absence of panic, it was doing things anyway, because they mattered. Kilira walked beside him, no longer maintaining a warrior's distance. Her presence was steady, grounding, and stronger than any shield generator in the station. As they stood once more at the observation window, Aaron nudged her and said, So, does this mean I'm allowed to comment on your tale now? Kilira stared at him. Then, to the shock of every human nearby, she laughed. A low, warm, rumbling sound that made half the outpost turn their heads. No, she said. But you may stand close enough to admire it. Aaron grinned. Deal. And for the first time since arriving on Esterion 6, the stars outside didn't look distant at all.